Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. My name is Putri Roshafina binti Asmat from DIA 3D. My ID number is PDA 2502077. Today, I would like to present about inflation. Before going into more detail, what does inflation actually mean? Inflation means increasing in the price of goods and services over time, which reduce the value or purchasing power of money. This happens when the overall prices of products and services continue to rise. This means people only can buy fewer goods with the same amount of money. For example, when the groceries cost 100 ringgit last year and 105 ringgit this year, this means the inflation has occurred. There are different types of inflation. The three main types of inflations are demand pull inflation, cost push inflation, and built-in inflation. Now, I will explain in more detail about these three main types of inflation. So, the first one is the demand pull inflation. What is demand pull inflation? Demand pull inflation is the type of inflation that happens when the demand becomes greater than the available supply. When consumers have more money and spend more, their businesses may not be able to produce enough product to meet the high demand. As a result, the price is increasing. For example, when there are too many people wants to buy a smartphone, but there are not enough smartphones available, the sellers may increase the price because of the demand is higher than the supply. The second type is cost push inflation. Cost push inflation is the type of inflation that happens when the cost of producing goods and services increase. When businesses face higher costs such as raw materials, wages, or transportation costs, they might increase their prices of products to maintain the profit. For example, when the price of fuel increases, the transportation costs also rise. So, the businesses increase their price of products to cover these higher costs. And the last one is built-in inflation. Built-in inflation happens when workers demand high wages because cost of living has increased. So, the businesses will increase the price of goods and services to cover these higher wage costs. This will lead to the continuous cycle of rising wage and rising prices. For example, workers ask for the higher salaries because the prices of foods and transportation have increased. The companies will increase the salaries, but at the same time, they will increase the price of their products to cover these additional costs. As we know, Malaysia's inflation rate in March 2026 have increased because of the rising fuel prices. Rising fuel prices contributed to the increase in Malaysia's inflation rate through the cost push inflation. This is because, as we know, the cost push inflation happens when the cost of production have increased, causing the businesses to increase the prices of goods and services. Since the fuel is widely used in transportation and production activities, the high fuel prices will lead to the increasing in operating costs for many businesses. According to the article, the Stars 2026 stated that the Malaysia's headline inflation rose from 1.4% in February 2026 to 1.7% in March 2026, while the core inflation was rise from 2.0% to 2.01%. The report stated that the rise in inflation was mainly due to the higher retail fuel prices following to the increased global oil prices. As the fuel costs increased, the transportation and distribution expenses also became more expensive. As a result, the businesses transferred these additional costs to the consumers by increasing their selling price.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Aini Sofia binti Muhammad Saiful Saadi. My number ID is PDA 2502079. Now I will answer the 2A question, which is what is subsidy. By definition, a subsidy is a government payment, financial contribution, or price control measure. Its main objective is to lower the amount that consumers or businesses have to pay for essential goods and services. In some cases, it is also used to artificially raise the income of producers to keep critical industries afloat. Especially, it serves as a financial cushion provided by the state to bridge the gap between actual market rates and public affordability. Forms of subsidies. The government implements subsidies in a variety of ways, depending on who they want to help. The first common method is through direct cash transfer, where money is sent directly to individuals or households to boost their immediate spending power. The second form is through tax reduction, which relieve financial pressure by lowering the tax burden on specific groups or targeted industries. Lastly, a government can directly intervene in the market by artificially lowering the price of essential commodities, ensuring items like fuel, electricity, or basic food products remain cheap for the public. In Malaysia, we can see these different forms working actively through Malaysia's welfare and fiscal policy. For instance, the government utilizes direct cash assistance through programs like Sumbangan Tunai Rahmah or STR, alongside Sumbangan Asas Rahmah known as SARA, which specifically helps lower-income families afford basic necessities. On top of that, periodic tax reduction are used to provide the middle class, and more recently, the implementation of the Budi Madani Rule 95 or Budi 95 program highlights a shift towards targeted fuel subsidies. This system ensures that eligible citizens continue to access petrol at a protected price, especially in this economy, while optimizing national spending and reducing leakages. In conclusion, subsidies are dynamic fiscal instruments vital for managing the cost of living and maintaining social equity. Before we begin to my first point, I will introduce what is Budi 95. Budi 95, also called the Budi Madani Rule 95 program, is Malaysia's targeted fuel subsidy for Rule 95 petrol. The main idea is to protect consumers from rising fuel prices while reducing the wider inflationary impact on the economy. First, it can avoid cost-push inflation. My first point is that Budi 95 helps reduce cost-push inflation, which happens when businesses face higher production and transport costs and then pass those costs to consumers. Since fuel affects delivery, logistics and daily transport, keeping petrol prices stable helps prevent the prices of food, goods and services from rising too quickly. For example, if lorry and delivery costs increase sharply, supermarket and restaurants may also raise their prices, but the subsidy helps limit the chain reaction. Second, my second point is that Budi 95 helps maintain purchasing power, especially for households that depends on their monthly income for essential spending. When people spend less on fuel, they have more money left for groceries and school expenses and other needs, which supports living standards and consumer demand. In simple terms, the subsidy protects households from losing too much of their spending ability when fuel prices rises. And my third point is, the Budi 95 does not work alone. It is part of a wider economic strategy alongside cash assistance and other support programs. This is important because the government can target help more efficiently instead of giving blanket subsidies to everyone. Economists also noted that the inflation impact has remained manageable, with projections suggesting only modest pressure rather than a big spike. And so, overall, Budi 95 helps Malaysia by softening the impact of higher fuel prices, protecting household spending and reducing inflation pressure in a targeted way. That makes it useful policy for balancing public welfare with economic stability.
Assalamualaikum everyone, my name is Ashraf Rafiuddin bin Abdul Aziz from the IA 3D and my ID number is PDA 2500250 and I will explain to you guys definition of supply chain. A supply chain is a network of people, organization, activities and technologies involved in producing and delivering products to consumers. It starts from suppliers who provide raw materials, then manufacturers who produce the goods, followed by distributors and retailers before the products finally reach the customer. And For example, in the food industries, the supply chain includes farmers, factories, transportation companies, supermarkets, and consumers. The supply chain is very important because it ensures products are delivered efficiently and on time. However, the supply chain depends heavily on transportation and fuel. Therefore, when fuel prices increase, the whole supply chain is affected. Now, let's discuss the effect of the supply chain if fuel prices continue to rise without subsidies. The first effect is an increases in transportation costs. Truck, ships, and delivery vehicles all require fuel. When fuel prices rise, companies must spend more money transporting raw materials and finished product. The second effect is higher production costs. Manufacturer needs fuel and energy to operate machinery and transport materials. As production becomes more expensive, companies may reduce output or increase the product prices. The third effect is an increase in product prices. Retailer usually transfer the higher cost to consumer. As a result, prices of food, clothing, and household products become more expensive. This reduces consumers' purchasing power because people can buy fewer goods with the same amount of money. The final effect is delays in distribution. Some companies may reduce delivery frequency or use cheaper transportation method to save their costs. This can slow down the movement of goods and disrupt the supply chain. And lastly, I will explain the effect of inflation on new business, also known as infant business. The first effect is cash flow problems. New business usually have limited financial reserve. During inflation, business expenses increase, while customer spending may decrease. For example, restaurants may need to pay more for food deliveries because transportation costs are higher. The second effect is reduced consumer purchasing power. During inflation, customers focus more on essential goods such as food and fuel. They spend less on non-essential products and services. As a result, new business may experience lower sales revenue. The third effect is difficulty competing with larger companies. Large companies can absorb rising costs more easily because they buy products in bulk and have stronger financial support. Small business, however, may need to increase prices faster, making them less competitive. The last effect is higher loan and financing costs. Inflation may cause interest rates to rise, which makes business loans more expensive. New entrepreneurs may struggle to obtain financing or repay their loans.
Alright, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Fadri bin Ahmad. My ID number PDL25020075. Now, I'll be talking about what are purchasing power and consumer price index, which is known as CPI. Purchasing power. Purchasing power is the quantity of goods and service that one unit of money can buy. When price rises due to inflation, the same amount of money buy less, meaning purchasing power decrease. So, for example, let's see, you go to supermarket and you buy 10 kg of rice for only $10. But that's before inflation. After inflation, you buy 1.5 kg rice for only $10. So we can say that the purchasing power decreases. Now let's talk about CPI, which is Consumer Price Index. The CPI measures the average change in prices of fixed basket of goods and service purchased by household. In Malaysia, it is compiled by the Department of Statistics Malaysia, which is known as DOSM. Right, if fresh fruit price remain high, Malaysian overall inflation would likely increase to stay under the pressure. Fresh food such as vegetable, fish, chicken, eggs, and fruits are bought frequently by household. When these prices do not fall, the food component in CPI remains highly. This would reduce purchasing power, especially for B40 household, because they spend a larger share of income on basic necessities. As a result, B40 families may need to buy cheaper food, reduce savings, cut other spendings, or depend more on government assistance.